I have known of our next guest for about 13 years, but today is the first day that he and I have had the opportunity to meet each other. And what a delight it is to welcome Pastor Carey Nieuwhof to 100 Huntley Street. He's the pastor of Connexus Church in Barrie, Ontario, one of Canada's, one of North America's bright stars as far as church and leadership. So good to see you.
John, so great to be here. Thank you so much. It's a thrill.
Well, it's a thrill to meet you too. We have a lot of mutual friends.
We do.
And I would love for us to spend time talking about them, but right now let's just talk about you. You are our pastor, author, enormously successful blogger, and we want to get into that. You are an influencer. You're someone who helps create, you're catalytic in a lot of your thinking, and God's really blessed you. A lot of areas I want to cover, but maybe let's go back first. Biographically, born where?
I was born in Windsor, Ontario.
Right. So just across from
Just
Detroit.
across from Detroit,
Yeah,
that's
but
right.
Tim Horton is on every corner.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And through the process of this, you spent almost a decade in radio of your life, earlier before ministry?
Yeah.
What drew you to that?
Well, you know what? I have this memory being 12 years old, driving with my parents in the car and watching the AM radio, 680 before it was 680 News for Toronto people, and thinking, I wonder what you need to do to become the guy in the radio. And when I was 16, I walked up the stairs to the local radio station in Midland and I said, how do I get a job here? And they hired me. I couldn't believe it. That's literally what happened. And that led to, I worked in Midland for a few years, and then when I moved to Toronto, I got a job at a radio station in Toronto.
I paid my way through grad school doing the midnight shift, noon to 6 in radio. Got started there. Moira Brown on our team, she got her start in radio too. And it's amazing, too, how radio helps you in ministry and pastoring.
Oh, I mean, I started podcasting last year, and it all came back.
All those quick sound bites and having to make some of the top of the minute or end of the minute work.
Making stuff up on the spot.
That's right. That's right, especially as a pastor, if you didn't sleep well during that week in preparation. Later, you got a degree in law? And where did that happen? That's a whole other story.
Yeah, it is. Again, one of those things when I was a kid, when I was 8 years old, I came home from Cub Scouts one day and I said to my mom and dad, I want to be a lawyer. I have no idea why, but the idea...
you aim high. I admire that,
Never left me, and I wanted to go to Osgoode Hall Law School. That was it. And finished a degree in history, applied to Osgoode, miraculously got in, and so I'm a lawyer.
So how many years ago, or how many years after you finished your law degree, did you end up going into ministry?
Well, it was in the middle of law school, actually, that I discerned a call to ministry. I was a Christian. I'd recommitted, grew up in the church, but recommitted my life to Christ in my early 20s and got to law school at 23, 24.
Now, and so then, and I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so 23, 24, and then do you go to seminary after this?
I did, yeah. I got this, really, I'm not a, supernatural type person, but it was a supernatural intervention, I believe, from God, because otherwise I don't think he would have gotten my attention. And I discerned a call to ministry and was really confused by it. Finished law school, articled in downtown Toronto, got called to the bar, and by that time said, well, out of obedience, I'm going to go to seminary. So I enrolled at Knox College U of T. Went to seminary, was trying to figure out what was going on, and I don't think I have the gifts to be a pastor because I'm not very pastoral.
Interesting.
Should I be a professor? I didn't know. I even went to Princeton and almost enrolled there to do a doctorate in homiletics, but found these three little churches, and I tried to get to a bunch of churches, and everybody said no, we don't need you, we don't want you. And okay, found these three little churches north of Barrie. And they were willing to take me. It was a great vote. They had another candidate. I won by 1 vote. It was awesome. Just tremendous success.
You gotta love democracy.
Oh yeah, won by 1 vote. By the way,
congregational form of government.
I should have been smart enough to know if you win by 1 vote, don't go because half the people don't want you.
So what happened? And I think this is so exciting because I'm watching how God formed you and shaped your ministry career. So did these three churches, were they the same denomination? Were they, and eventually were you able to merge them? Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened. So I went there in '95, and There were 3 little churches. It was a student charge because they couldn't afford a real pastor who was more expensive.
Right.
So average attendance at one was 6. Another was about 15.
So when your family came, the church probably doubled.
It did, actually. It did, yeah. We grew up by 50% overnight. It was huge. Yeah. And then the third was 25. So adding them all together, about 45 people.
Eventually they merged?
We did. Within 5 years, we had grown enough that there was pressure on the buildings, and so we decided rather than reconstruct century-old, we merged. Went to an elementary school, grew from 1 to 3 services in the elementary school, then built a new building, moved in there in '03, and then in 2000, again, doubled in size in the new building. And then around that time, a number of us decided to start over again in a non-denominational context.
You hit a refresh button.
We did. We hit refresh. So we went to the south and to the north, out of Oro to Barrie and to Orillia. Started in '07, started Connexus Church at the very tail end, and have been there as the lead and founding pastor since.
Barrie is a booming community, about an hour north of Toronto. Then Orillia is about another hour north.
About a half hour north of Barrie.
And just know they have great hamburgers at Weber's.
Oh yeah, unbelievable.
Love to stand in line at Weber's. Sorry, we're going way too local here. I apologize.
Yeah.
But those are really great communities. They're growing, and so you have your base operation, I guess, in Barrie, and is Orillia satellite?
Yeah, kind of. They're both portable churches right now. We're going to be moving into our new facility, which is a central facility in Barrie, in a few months. And it's a video church. So I teach about half the time. The other half of the time, we're North Point partners, so it's Andy Stanley.
Fantastic.
And so we're both campuses and future locations will be used to video.
Well, the reason that ramp up, it helps us tell the story, but it also really is a qualifier because you write this book on leading change and you have lived change. When you and I, we're similar ages and have similar age kids. When you and I began ministry in the early '80s for me, maybe mid '80s for you, doing church then is a whole lot different than doing church now.
Oh yeah.
And guys like you that were able to make adaptations and changes and adjustments and realignments along the way, you're going forward. But I know this book, Leading Change, not only reflects great strategies, but it also, I know, reflects, it had to be a great labor of love, and as the old Canadian band would be, blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah,
as well, right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of tears and sweat in that book. But really, the constant in 20 years of leadership for me has been change. That has been the one constant. And I think the reason I wrote the book is so many leaders are afraid of change. Everybody knows we need to change.
So let's talk about that because there is the fear. And I've had opportunity to lead change in a couple organizations too. I've not been able to put it down so beautifully as you, but there is an inherent fear of change.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so we have these dreams, right? Like you know where God is calling you to be, and you've got a vision for a preferred future as a leader. But I think what scares a lot of leaders, sometimes from initially making the change or mid-course just backing off, is the wall of opposition that inevitably comes when change happens. And we got it. I mean, imagine this young kid, I was just past my 30th birthday, showing up at these 3 churches, and my goodness, and within a few years, okay, let's sell these historic buildings that your great-grandparents built, where you got married, where your kids were baptized, where you got all these things, and we're just going to sell them, and we're going to move to an elementary school, and we're going to raise $2 million and build something new. Well, why wouldn't you oppose that? So we got opposition, and then the question is, well, how do you lead a congregation to the point where you can do something like that? And while we were doing that, we were changing the style of worship. Okay. We were changing the dress. Robes were expected, and I'm far more comfortable like this. So we were changing everything, even the governance structure.
You have 5 strategies that can, and we're going to put them on the screen, and folks can see them. First thing, strategy number 1 is do the math.
Yeah. So this is where this is probably my favorite because we all read our inboxes, and you look at the email, or you go to the congregational meeting, and somebody lines up in the microphone, and they tell you, "I'm so opposed to this change, and if you don't, then I will, and we're all leaving," and everybody gets scared. And so when I've really analyzed change, at least in my experience and the experience I've seen in other leaders, the opposition is smaller than you think. And the figure that I float in the book is it's usually about 10%.
That's right.
So if you have a church of about 100, you've got 10 vocal opponents.
They're very loud.
They're very loud. And this is the mistake we make as leaders. We think, well, because they're loud, they're large. And opponents, you know this, John, always speak for everybody. Well, I've been talking to everybody.
Well, so-and-so said. And
nobody likes the changes.
A lot of people feel this way.
A lot of people feel this way. And you know, you can play around with that. Really? You talk to everybody? How did you do that? And so, you know, when you do the math, you realize, well, that's 10% of the population. So then the question in leadership becomes, do I let 10% tell 90% what to do? Do I actually sacrifice the future of 90% for the sake of the 10% who are opposed? Because what you'll discover is in the 10% who are opposed, some of them are opposed to everything. It doesn't matter what you suggest. If you said, let's not merge, they'd be opposed.
Well, I have learned that there are people that get up in the morning and don't feel they're successful. And they've had a good day until they basically have shot down your idea or been negative or opposed something that could be for good. I mean, there are a lot of people who live their life that way. I mean, I find that very sad and tragic, but it's true.
It's a great way to describe it.
Let me give you one more, and then I want to talk about blogging in the last minute or so. You talk about don't quit. This is the last one, but I want to get to it because really perseverance is huge in this, isn't it?
Well, I'm the most surprised that I've been in the same community, ministering actually with some of the same core people for 20 years now. And I'll tell you, I never thought that would be the case.
But you did life with them.
We're doing life together, which is amazing, and it's so rich. But there have been times where I've almost quit. You know, the opposition gets so, it feels so strong that there were 3 or 4 times over the last 20 years where I thought, you know what, I just can't do this anymore. And I found that often I'm most tempted to quit moments before my critical breakthrough.
Beautifully said.
And so I would just say to people who are tempted to quit, but you got a good vision, hang in there.
This book is awesome, and Carey, I want you to come back and let's talk more leadership stuff. This is fun.
Okay.
What I want to say too before we go is that God has given you a great audience with your blog, with your web blog. Just give us some sense of the scope of it and then how we can find it.
Well, it was crazy. I mean, last year in 2014, there was something like 1.7 million page views, over 1 million readers, 1.2 million readers.
Wow.
It's just, and I only started at the end of 2012. So I just write on leadership. I try to help leaders lead better than ever before. And you can find it just at my name, CareyNieuwhof.com.
All right. Well, CareyNieuwhof.com and Connexus Church. There are a lot of places on social media to find this man. Will you come back to see me?
I'd love to.
And we'll get caught up off camera and on camera too. But this is rich material. And let me encourage you to get the book, Leading Change Without Losing It. Well said, Carey. Thank you. God bless.
Thanks.